Godzilla, king of the monsters, born from nuclear radiation. Director of the 2014 Godzilla, Gareth Edwards, said Godzilla represented a force of nature, or the hand of God. Realistically, nature cannot be completely stopped, and I suppose neither can God. Killing Godzilla seems like an almost impossible task, but I am going to attempt to shed some light on how it is possible. Obviously, there are spoilers ahead. In the 30-something movies Godzilla has appeared in, he has been killed for real only twice. In the original 1954 Gojira, Dr. Serizawa created the fictional oxygen destroyer. This device rids the area of all oxygen and liquefies all life in the area. Serizawa brought the oxygen destroyer down to Godzilla and activated it, purposely killing himself, the only person who knew how to make it, so that no one else could ever create another weapon that devastating. So, if Godzilla ever came to wreak havoc on us, theoretically, if we didn't have to worry about Serizawa, or whether it's real or not, create an oxygen destroyer and kill Godzilla. Except, in later movies where Godzilla returned, the monster Destroya was an embodiment of the oxygen destroyer, and Godzilla survived repeated attacks from him. So maybe not. It is known, however, that Godzilla requires oxygen to breathe when he's not underwater. So, feasible option number 1 to kill Godzilla, suffocate him. The only other time Godzilla has died is in 1995's Godzilla vs. Destroya. In this movie, Godzilla is old, and his atomic heart is withering away. The movie ends with Godzilla dying and almost melting into the Earth's core to ignite the planet and kill everything. But he's pelted with ice weapons from the JSDF, somehow neutralizing the immense heat. So that's great, right? Just let Godzilla get really old until he can't control his own radiation, and then freeze him before he explodes. Except, currently, as far as I know, we don't actually have advanced enough ice weapons to be able to freeze an exploding Godzilla. And anyway, after that whole mess, Godzilla's son came and took his place. So letting Godzilla get old might just allow more Godzillas. So it's probably best to avoid that option. So now we've exhausted all examples in the movies of Godzilla dying, meaning we should move on to other feasible ways to kill him. In just about every Godzilla movie, Godzilla has faced off against a plethora of other monsters. Sadly, for our purposes, none of which have successfully killed him. And they're also not real. King Ghidorah almost choked Godzilla to death, strengthening our suffocation theory, but he didn't because Godzilla ex machina. Mechagodzilla could be a possibility though. In the movies, he's come close to killing Godzilla several times, so maybe give him a few more chances and he could get the job done, right? Well, possibly, but we also have to consider building Mechagodzilla. It would be extremely expensive, quite possibly too expensive to make. I can't find an accurate representation of how much it would cost to build, not with the school's internet at least, but with an estimated assumption, we could build a single Mechagodzilla if we were extremely lucky. And even then, the chance of Mechagodzilla being able to successfully kill Godzilla is very unlikely, so we should move on to more possible methods. Because Godzilla's heart is basically a nuclear reactor, cadmium might be able to shut it down. Cadmium is an element that's used to cool down nuclear reactors. In 1984's The Return of Godzilla, the fictional military aircraft Super X fired cadmium shells down Godzilla's throat. It did, in fact, stop his heart, but that was only temporarily as Godzilla's immune system overcame the effects and Godzilla was back. It should be noted, though, that cadmium was still an effective way to subdue or slow him down after that, which could be used to our advantage. In 1954's King Kong vs. Godzilla, the JSDF brings King Kong to Godzilla, using balloons. They have a pretty, interesting fight, closely resembling two 5-year-olds. Near the end, they both fall off a cliff into the water and have an underwater battle. In the end, only King Kong resurfaced, and then he swam home. Does this mean he killed Godzilla? Well, probably not. It's very likely Kong just gave up because he can't breathe underwater while Godzilla can. Or maybe they decided to just be cool with each other. You might be thinking, what if we got him in a black hole or something? No. In Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, the JSDF created a weapon that could fire black holes. They fired it at Godzilla, because the JSDF does not like him, and it looked like it might work, but it didn't. Godzilla pulled himself out of the black hole. There are a lot of other reasons why black holes would not work, mostly for our own safety, but we now know that they don't work against Godzilla anyway. So, right now, it's still just suffocation. In 2001's Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, otherwise known as GMK because that is way too long title, Godzilla received a wound in his neck, somehow, which worsened every time he used his atomic breath. This did eventually seemingly kill Godzilla, until it cut to Godzilla's heart, still beating. We have to consider that even though Godzilla's heart is still beating, it doesn't necessarily mean he'll regenerate his body. It is just his heart, meaning his brain is gone and can't send a signal to rebuild. But technically, Godzilla was still alive. It's actually very likely that this was simply an artistic visual metaphor, as Godzilla does return for more movies anyway. But it could just be saying that as long as conflict in humanity exists, so will Godzilla. Okay, no more artistic stuff. Back in the real world, Senior Airman Herman of the U.S. Air Force's 18th Wing in Japan said he could defeat the beast with a 50 caliber machine guns on just 4 helicopters. Just knowing what Godzilla has survived already, I think it's a safe bet to assume he'd just shrug those off, especially since Godzilla had already faced off against 50 caliber machine guns in the original Gojira, and he's only gotten more powerful in the movies since then. There are more serious people in the military, thankfully. One scientist laid out his plan to defeat the beast. He explained that the first step would be to blind him using unguided rockets filled with white phosphorus from a couple rotary wing gunships, and to repeat as needed. This would destroy his eyes if they're organic, and if they're mechanic, the heat would damage or destroy them as well. So yeah, this plan works if a Mecha Godzilla from space came after us too. There is of course the fact that Godzilla has atomic breath, but this is mostly fine as he can only fire this breath in one direction, and America has close to 1,000 gunships. So just like a dozen of them can fire the phosphorus rockets into his eyes from different directions. So that's great, Godzilla is blind. Now what? Well, now the next step is to kill him, apparently. The scientist recommended sending 2 B-2 stealth bombers from Missouri, which they pointed out specifically, I guess, each armed with a massive ordnance penetrator. The massive ordnance penetrator is a 30,000-pound, precision-guided bunker buster filled with a deadly RDX explosive designed to slice through solid rock. One of the biggest munitions ever. The 2 bombers would come in a few minutes apart, dropping from 10,000 feet, which gives the fin-stabilized bomb a chance to gravity accelerate before impact, and some standoff for a slightly non-vertical glide angle. The angle is important to get maximum damage. For some reason, look, I'm not good at math. A team of people equipped with laser designators would mark a point on the body, presenting the near-perpendicular path for one of the most powerful non-nuclear weapons that the human race has. The massive bomb would bury itself into the beast. According to the scientists, Godzilla will be like a giant tub of Play-Doh. The bomb would have a delayed fuse to allow it to drill into the massive body, and then boom, Godzilla guts and stuff are no longer a thing. So Godzilla is dead now, right? Actually, it's pretty likely. Nothing I've found from the original movies doesn't say white phosphorus couldn't be able to blind him. If anything, we just have to be quick and do this as soon as we spot him so he doesn't evolve, if we're paying attention to Shin Godzilla anyway. Just to bring things back around, if it's possible, then a cadmium shell down his throat would be helpful at any point in this plan. And the massive ordnance penetrator? Yeah, that can go through 200 feet of concrete, so that sounds good to me. The scientist did say something could go wrong, though. If the angle of attack was wrong, then the bomb could potentially be deflected. But not to worry, that's why we specified 2 stealth bombers should come, so if the first one screws up, we'll have some sort of backup plan. The scientist also pointed out that it would be helpful to bring another 2 stealth bombers, bringing the total to 4 massive ordnance penetrators, just to guarantee that Godzilla would be no more. As for cleanup, the scientist said there may be a hazmat mess afterwards, but there will be no nuclear explosion. Local radiological cleanup, at worst. So, to sum up, Godzilla can be killed by suffocation, but who cares anymore? Real life has massive ordnance penetrators, which are cheaper and more guaranteed than building a Mechagodzilla, doesn't involve a massive nuclear explosion that could ignite the Earth and kill us all, and realer than King Kong, who's probably friends with Godzilla anyway. And there, we have been saved from Godzilla. Should just stockpile a bunch of massive ordnance penetrators in case of any other monsters coming ashore.